Very good morning again to everybody who's joined in to today's session. So today's session is a continuation and the final session for driving learning through families, which we started in the month of May, especially for parents, just after we closed our online engagement with children in April. The whole aim of organizing these sessions for parents was to help to tune into what children's needs are across various levels, how learning and development takes place with them, and even in this lockdown situation and at our homes, what is the best that we can do at home, how we can prepare our environment, and how we can support our children's learning. So, of course, the first sessions were done by Moisa and Helen, and we also had some parents who came in to these sessions. And the reason to bring parents into these sessions and connect with the larger parent community was to also give an understanding of how learning for children looks very different in different homes, and across ages learning will look different, and whatever is happening in your home environment will add greatly to the context of children's learning. Not only what is happening with the pandemic and what's happening with the school and what's happening in everybody's personal lives, in children's and parents, all of these things, that how we respond to this pandemic and what we are doing at home, and what possibilities we create for ourselves and children, all of these will collectively contribute to the context of children's learning at this time. And we had parents who spoke about the toddlers learning in their home, and then we also spoke about and some parents also presented about what's happening with their elementary children at home. And what we have learned over these interactions with parents and our responses, the response that we received from parents during the April session, during the time of the lockdown when we were trying to reach out to children and parents through our online engagement, is one that this is more about the elementary group, that some children were very happy with the worksheets that were going on, and they were happy to come online, meet their friends and meet teachers. And some children were just wanting to find out when all of this online work is going to stop. So we had all kinds of children, and the extremes, those who finished their worksheets immediately and those who didn't care about the worksheets at all. And of course, what we have established through our parent sessions is that everything that's happening with children can be called as learning. If we narrow down the children's learning only to, let's say, how much a child is writing, or how much a child is reading, or how much of how many tables has he learned, or how good he is at math concepts, if we are only going to be confining our perspective of children's learning to these three skills, we are missing out a lot of the things that are happening with children. And the most important thing for us elementary parents and teachers to keep in mind with this age group is that one, they have their own interests and own questions, and they have a lot of making sense of the world that is happening inside their head and that perspective is very different from what we as adults have. So one of the simplest things we can do with elementary children is to look at what their discussions are, to look at what their questions are. If you look at any of our learning, something that we as adults also have learned very well, or we have really learned enough to carry on our work, it always starts from some question that we've had. We wanted to figure out something, and we went ahead and learned that. We wanted to find out why something is like that, and we went ahead and figured that out and learned that as well. So the great thing with elementary children is that they have a lot of questions. and we will be hearing a little more about elementary children's learning and their characteristics from our team members. On the panel today, we have Moiza Rafat, who is the founder director of Pebble Creek Schools. We have Helen, Mrs. Helen, who is a part of the Montessori Training and Research Center. For those of you who have joined our online sessions, you would have had the opportunity to interact with her online. She has been working with families across the country, even on international platforms. She has been working across various teams of teachers and meeting parents of various schools. And she's here to add to our perspective and our plans and work going forward. We have Preeti, who is one of our trained elementary guides. She's going to tell us a little bit about the characteristics of the second plane child. And the reason why we thought it is important to include this part is because some of our parents here may be new to elementary. And a lot of the times, even as trained adults, some of us who have elementary children, we have to keep going back to this idea of what is real for them, what is happening with them in this particular age group, and how they approach their learning, what is it that they're doing for themselves. And when we remind ourselves of these characteristics, it really helps us to tune into what our children's interests are and what we need to support in the whole sphere of their learning. We also have Pragati, who is the head of elementary years, and her perspective will help us a lot during the question and answer session. Now, when we were planning to have this session, which is called Key Aspects of Learning and Orientation to Further Work, we were thinking that throughout our online sessions, we have spoken a lot to parents, and we have tried to communicate a lot of things about philosophy, about practice, about preparation of the environment, about our perspective with approaching children's learning. And this session we thought is very important that we hear from parents. Now, we want to make it as interactive as possible. And having said that, we also want to acknowledge that we are around 60 participants, and more people may join us maybe in the next half an hour. So my request to all of you is, whatever questions are coming into your mind as parents about your child's learning, and if there is something that you would like to clarify, this would be a good platform today to post your questions on the chat, and all of us collectively will try and respond to those questions. You can start posting your questions now, so that by the time we are ready for a question and answer session, we would have already had a few questions that we can start responding to. So yeah, a little bit about what the work that went on in April. The April's lockdown month was a very new situation for us in the school, like it was for all parents, for all children. It was the situation itself was very new, and we were all trying to cope with whatever we understood best at that time. And going forward, we have already started planning with our teacher teams across levels. And there are two things which we collectively wanted to ensure that we do going forward. One is to make the online engagement, whatever amount of time we spend on online engagement, to make that time as meaningful as possible for children. That is the first thing. Second thing is to tune into children's interest personally, and to find out what is happening with them. So we have also thought about how we are going to connect with each child. Every child from each environment will be connecting with their teachers, not only on the collective session online, but also on a one-on-one session. And all of these schedules and plans will be shared by the environment teachers with all parents. And the third thing we also wanted to do is to make space for parents to reach out to us. and for us to uh, ensure that we are trying to address every parent's concern as much as possible, and collectively parents and teachers are able to take care of children's overall learning needs, and also trying to tune into them individually through this time that we are going to be working with them going forward. So these are the few things that I wanted to bring to our attention before we move forward. And that's all from my end. I hope you find this session fruitful and meaningful. And please note that start posting your questions in the chat. So we have a few questions to start off with when we start our question and answer session. And we plan to give maximum time to that part of today's online interaction. So it's over to Moiza, and we could like to hear your address to parents before we go forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Surabhi, and good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Here, after experiencing a couple of months of lockdown and with mixed feelings, of course. And,
you're not audible, Moiza.
I'm not audible? Okay, okay.
Yeah, it's audible to us.
Yeah, okay.
Is this better? Am I audible now? I'm speaking from another.
Better before itself.
Okay, so what do I do? Is it better on this?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it better now?
Yeah, this is fine.
Better
Moiza.
now?
Thanks, it's fine.
Am I audible now?
Are you comfortable, ma'am?
Okay, so yeah, we've had, we are coming back after a couple of months of lockdown, and the anxieties haven't reduced in any way. People are experiencing different things in different homes. Children are experiencing different things at different homes. Parents are going through different challenges. So we have come with some experience of this lockdown now. It's not very new, and we know how children and parents have responded to whatever engagements have happened over the past week, past few months. And the whole world has gone into a spin, with online engagement, whether it's for children or for adults. You just talk every day, you can attend 10 webinars and you get invites for zillion webinars every day, and you have started already. I feel repelled by the idea of being on a webinar now, because it's gone overboard. I neither want to present nor I want to listen to any more gyan. That's where I am in my journey with all this online engagement. Now, that is for us as adults, but children,
I'm sorry, Moiza, your voice is not audible.
Way forward for our children, and as parents, as educators, there are a lot of concerns. There is anxiety, and there is there is a lot of comparison of what's happening. So nobody really knows the way, but we are seeing that parents are able to see the other schools have already started online engagement. There's already so much that other schools are doing, and what are we planning to do as a school? So as I said, we all are on a different journey. Each school had a plan in place, and whatever work they did to carry on they did to carry on that work. So if we compare it to any other Montessori school or a traditional school, they tried to continue the work that they had already started, and they're trying to do the best to their best of their abilities. And we as a school, as Pebble Creek, as a Montessori school, we also initiated some kind of work, and it's only logical and it's practical to continue that work. So we do not bring in any big there's already a big challenge that children are at home and we are not, children are not able to come to school. That's itself a very big challenge. But let's not add more to the challenges which can be developmentally detrimental for children. That's our aim as educators, as team of teachers. This is what has been occupying most of our time, thinking about what is the way forward, what is the best way forward. And it is just not Pebble Creek, the entire Montessori community worldwide has been thinking about which is the best way to engage. And the entire community worldwide, within Hyderabad and nationally and internationally, everybody, the entire Montessori community does talk about how we need to offer a differential approach to various learners and build context for each child with regard to the situation that he or she is experiencing. So it's just not lockdown, it is just not lack of interaction with teachers. There are financial issues, there are emotional issues, there are health issues, there are many dynamics. There are space issues also. Some homes do not have adequate space to be able to engage children meaningfully. They are not able to step out. So these are all real facts. What is true for me is not true for the next family. So how do we really, in all of this, create something that is of meaning for every learner? That is our aim. And this obviously is not easy. We cannot just run a class for 30 children and say, this is how you learn. We don't want to do that because we have never done it so far. And we don't wish to do that kind of work going forward either. So I only appeal to parents is that it is a temporary situation. If not in 1 month, not 2 months, maybe 3 months down the line, we'll be back in school, or maybe 6 months down the line, worst case scenario. But this is temporary. It is only going to be a short span of time that this lockdown will continue, and finally, we hope that we'll all get back to normal. And we should remember that this is temporary, and let's not make a permanent impact on a child's psyche. That's our aim here. So I request parents to not have, not suffer or inflict on yourself the pains associated with FOMO. So for those of you who understand this term, it is fear of missing out. You're not missing out. Your children are not missing out on anything. We'll catch up. Even if they missed out, what would they miss out? Some academic content, that's it. But they still have a lot more that you can offer and you can continue to offer at home, which we as a school are going to help you understand what you can do. We don't expect that you understand completely what are the various ways of engaging children and driving learning through those activities, and how you are able to view learning taking place in simple activities, in doing household work. What is the learning? That is something that that our team is going to help help parents with. The team is completely geared up to engage with parents in smaller groups, if needed, one-on-one, and depending on where the learners are, the group size will be decided, and all of those things, developmental age, all of those things have have been planned, which the academic team will share, and I will not like to repeat it because it will be anyway shared with you. Now, I think in the past presentations we spoke about is, we all know that it's hard to only convince ourselves that the textbook or any academic content is not the only learning. We have to be able to build skills for learning. And yesterday when I was talking to the primary Montessori parents, and I don't know whether some of you were there as parents and teachers, I gave an example of a child who's about to, who sees the letter A and wants to write that letter A. There's one way that you draw lines, you create dots, and you hold the child's hand and you make the child write A. That's one way. Maybe the child will start writing A faster. Maybe within 15-20 days, the child will eventually start writing. But it was with complete dependence on something. There's another way that you leave the letter A and give the child papers to look at this letter and scribble till the A is formed. And this way the child has developed a skill of knowing how to write, how to understand, and how to create something. And this will stay with the child forever, and he or she will apply this in other scenarios. This is a small example. And this is what we need to do, that we build certain skills which will help them improve their learning skills. We have create activities that will help build their learning skills. But I know Preeti will talk about the characteristics of the second plane children. It's important for each one of you as adults. I mean, forget the teachers of course are studying it, but as parents it is you are duty bound by this fact that you need to know what your child needs right now. You have to make that effort to know what is your role, what is the child's need, and how do you support the child in answering those needs. So I think in that effort you must completely align with the academic team, who will be talking about it, who will be counseling parents, who will be sharing ideas and suggesting activities. Those things have to be taken seriously, even though even though the teacher may just say that the child today needs to just fold all the clothes in the almirah that they have. They have to sort out their room, they have to make the bed, or they just have to learn how to wash the toilet. So these kind of things have a long lasting learning component in it, which will be very beneficial, and we should take this time as a blessing that we will be able to connect children with activities that are important for life. Those are life skills. So I don't want to duplicate, because when you're talking about characteristic, I'm sure Preeti will connect all of this. Another point that we need to talk about, what I want to talk about, is preparing your home environment for independent choice of children. While what teachers send, for example, if we look at a worksheet, but maybe all subjects they'll send one worksheet. Examples, hypothetical situation, there are 5 worksheets for the day. Teachers have designed and sent it. How long do you think that those worksheets will engage? They can be, they may just be over within maximum, even if the child really plays around and fools around and, it's a maximum engagement of 40 minutes. Unless it is a question that makes the child think and prolong his thought process or exploration or an idea with which the child can engage for longer. And what do you think is better? That you feel that 45 minutes work has been done, so my child's learning is on track, or that we occupy the child's mind in such a way that throughout the day, the child is toying with certain ideas which expand the child's mind, intellect, and personality. So this is what our aim, what the aim of our work would be, is not engaging just with some short-sighted vision of doing a worksheet, but we will try to support the needs of these children, to imagine, to reason, to find out, to mentally expand their area of action, is what our aim would be throughout the next few weeks, that children will engage with teachers online. And in that we will be working with parents and children directly, also to carry on this kind of work, and that's our aim. So it will really look very, very different from what other schools are doing. It will be unique to our ecosystem. It will be in answer to the work that is already being done and how it can be carried forward. But there will be simple activities. Don't expect any, a heavy academic content coming your way. It will be thought through of, we are looking at it from a very different perspective, and building offering activities which are relevant to the context and the place and the time that children are finding themselves in. So that is our effort as the academic team, and yeah, that's where we are. I have to share about Montessori's idea about role of an adult or a teacher, which I shared yesterday. In fact, I have shared it in three continuous sessions in the last 3 days, and this will be the 4th time I'm going to share it. because it's an important one, about how Montessori viewed the adult, the educator. Right now, the parents are not just parents, they're also educators. And as adults, you are, everybody, the parent and the teacher, both are educators, and we are teaching something or the other to the child. So she talks about the adult or the educator being an obedient servant to his or her master. Who's the master? The child is a master. And every adult is an obedient servant. This obedient servant takes all the effort throughout the day to prepare the best dishes for his master. And this obedient servant lays those dishes on the table and then waits upon his master to make a choice. The servant never tells the master which one should the master eat first, which one should the master like better. The servant doesn't say, the obedient servant will keep quiet, will never say, this is very tasty, this is what you should have. Or this is the only thing I made, this is the only thing you will have. So as obedient servants, we have to position ourselves like that. We are the obedient servants trying to prepare a variety of ideas and activities out of which the child, the master, must make his or her own free choice. Understand this idea of free choice. It has to be real. What you offer should be meaningful, and it should really be there, and you should prepare it in such a way that the child is independently able to carry on that work. And that is one of the guiding principles that we will have running through these through the coming weeks and months, we don't know, but for whatever duration that we need to engage, this is the approach we will take. The details of how teachers will engage will be shared by the academic team through various other sessions, so I will not take away time here explaining that. I think that would be my message right now, and I'm sure with the questions coming up, which would be very helpful, we'll be able to respond and give our ideas on those challenges or opinions that parents have, and we are here to help, and the entire academic team is here to help you, and we will walk this journey, travel this journey together without causing any permanent damage. We know screen is not good. We know online engagement is not good, but how do we manage, how do we create that balance will be our aim, and what we do on screen will continue to remain interactive and not instructional in nature. So be prepared for that. And I request humbly for parents to build understanding of this. Worldwide, researchers have told not just young children, even graduation or children in 11th and 12th or 8th, 9th and 10th have not been able to extract learning from the online platform. This instructional platform does not work. And this is what even CBSE is talking about. I think we forwarded a link of Anurag Tripathi telling that we just can't say that the classroom look like this in reality. Now in the virtual classroom, you're that side. I continue to give my instruction from this side of the screen the same way, and it is not going to work. We need to work on things that children can engage on. Hi, that is Archana. Shaurya is there. Say hello to him. Hi. So yeah, so we need to really build our own understanding and not be in a rush. We cannot just do this, all of this in a rush to, just think of whatever has to be done. Let's do this. All schools are doing this. Let's do this. The whole world is doing this. Let's do this. Let us be calm and composed about this whole thing and take this on more peacefully, more practically, more logically, in the interest of the well-being of the child. So that's from my side right now, and I'm around when the questions come up, and we'll be happy to answer and respond. Thank you very much. Over to Shirobi.
Thank you, Moiza. So we will hear from Preeti a little bit more about what Moiza has set the tone for. She will be speaking about the second plane characteristics. And these are things which, as elementary parents, we really need to be in tune with. And I'm sure once you understand these things, our anxiety about children's learning and how we have to respond to them, all of those things will clarify a little bit at your end. So over to Preeti. Thank you.
Thanks, Shurubi. Can everyone hear me? Just give a thumbs up, some of you. All right. Okay. I am a Pebble Creek and I'm also a Pebble Creek parent with two children, both of whom are second plane children, so they are in the elementary years. So I was going to spend some time today talking about the characteristics of the second plane child. And the second plane is sort of a technical term Montessorians keep using, but basically it's a child between the age group of 6 and 12 years. So, you know, Moiza has positioned us now as the servants to our masters. So I guess it is our duty to start understanding what our masters need. So just thinking of an analogy, you know, all of us have done some gardening. We have all grown plants at some point of time or the other. And we know what the plants need, right? We give them water, we give them sunlight, we give them air. And what happens if we don't give them those things? What happens if we don't give them water, we don't give them sunlight, or we don't give them air? Basically, they do not grow, right? So we know that those are the plant's needs, right? Now, what happens if instead of water, I say, you know, let me just give it some milk. Or I say, never mind, let's not give it sunlight today. Is the plant going to grow properly? It's not, right? So it's similar with the children. Like, we need to understand what their needs are, and we need to provide for those needs. So when we talk of second plane characteristics, it is nothing but understanding their needs. Now, if you look at child development theory, say Montessori or any other child development theory, they always talk of development as happening in stages. Stages are basically a group of years that they define, and they say from birth to this age, the child requires these things. These are the things that you need to provide for. From this age to this age, this is what you need to provide for. So what a child requires at birth is very different from what a child needs between 6 to 12 years and what the child needs, when he's an adolescent. So let us spend some time trying to understand what the needs of our children are. And all of us have children in that age group, 6 to 12 years. So I'll just try to paint a picture of what our children are like. I'm sure, most of you, all of you actually have noticed these things. It's just that we don't it's not in our consciousness. We always notice them and we move on. So firstly, on the physical side, those of you who have children who are just 6, 7 years old, you have noticed that your baby is no more a toddler, a little chubby child who is, just learning to walk. Basically, these children they've sort of shed their baby weight a little bit. They become leaner. They become much stronger. They want to keep moving all the time. They have a lot of stamina. They want to run, play, climb, all of those things. Whatever they can do with their bodies, they want to do. So just juxtaposing that with the situation that we're in right now, we're in a lockdown and we've all been homebound for 2 or more months now, which is difficult for us adults. So we can imagine what it must be doing to this child whose physical stamina is just sort of exploding. Right? So movement, they really need to move in whatever form that they can. The other thing that's happening to them socially is that they are now moving on from their families. They're not content to just know, mama, papa, and like their immediate surroundings. They want to know what's happening in the world. They want to go outside, explore. What does it mean to be part of a society? And they also want to be part of a group. So I'm sure you find your children having these groups. On some days somebody is a leader, the next day the leader changes. Then they say, so and so is not my friend anymore. He left me out, she left me out. That kind of group instinct is there in them, and they very much need this interaction. They need to laugh, they need to talk, they need to shout, they need to be with each other. Then on the intellectual front, there is a lot happening at this stage. The first thing is that their imaginations are just starting to explode, literally. They're taking all of these inputs that they get from their senses, their touch and exploration of objects and being outdoors and all the experiences that they have, and they can use their imagination to ask many, many questions and to imagine how things work. They love stories, they want to learn about things through stories. And it is this imagination that is helping them to ask many questions. So, our children are always asking, why is this? What is this? How is this? When do we do this? How does this happen? There are times when you can't get them to stop asking questions. So this is their intellectual development that is happening. And for this elementary child, everything is learning. In whatever they see, whatever you're talking to them, whatever chore you're having them do, whatever they see outside, everything is a learning. They are infinitely curious about everything around them. So given this imagination and this inclination to ask so many questions, they are able to form generalizations, they're able to form patterns, they're able to abstract rules. So they really need that concrete touch and the experience, and they keep working with that, and they're able to sort of abstract rules out of many, many things that they see around them, right? And one more thing that's happening is they want to be challenged, not just physically, they also want to be challenged mentally. So you can see them taking on bigger and bigger work. It's very common, we feel like, okay, we've taught them addition or subtraction or multiplication, and then we often feel like, okay, let's give them 10 problems to solve, and if they can solve these 10 problems, that's it, they know addition or subtraction or whatever we've taught them. Practice, we keep talking about practice. But for this age group, they want to practice, but they don't want to perfect their art or their skill through repetition of the same thing again and again. What interests them actually is to expand that. They want elaboration, they want a variety in their activities. So this is very common in a Montessori classroom. I'm sure other guides have also noticed. Small example, when I was teaching multiplication last year to somebody, I taught them 2-digit by 2-digit multiplication. So this child practices 2-3 problems, and then he comes to me and says, okay ma'am, now I want to do 10-digit by 10-digit. It's no more about, okay, can I do this? Should I be doing more of the same problem? No. He wanted to do 10 by 10 digit. Then he wanted to do 20 by 20 digits. And he actually sat there and did that work, and as an adult, that's usually not something we think of. We think of giving them worksheets. We think of giving them things to practice more and more. They do want to perfect themselves. It's just that the way they want to do it is different from how we envision it. So what are we doing to support that? So this is on the intellectual front, but also on their emotional and moral front. There are many, many things happening. You might have noticed that they're constantly talking about, this is fair, this is unfair. This rule is fair, this is fair. Why does Papa get screen time? Why do I not get screen time? How is that fair? So they have this sense of morals, like what is okay, what is not okay. And they really want to figure it out for themselves. They don't want just somebody telling them this is fine, this is not fine. They want to know why. And they're also looking at the world around them, and they want to know, if something is fair for someone, why is it not fair for somebody else? So again, during this pandemic, there are so many things going on outside socially, and any of those might be great things to talk about with the children. I'm sure Ms. Helen will talk about these later. But what is happening with the migrant workers? What is happening with the doctors on the front lines? Is it fair? Is it not fair? Like, those are questions that would be coming to their minds. They also have a sense of responsibility. So like Moiza and Shruti were saying, they want to find meaning in the work that they're doing. So whenever we give them something to do, it has to be meaningful, and they want to take on a bigger role, even within their family. So they want to be responsible for a particular chore. It's not just that, you let them do a little bit of something just because they have been after you to help them with something. It's more like they want to own that whole activity. They feel that sense of responsibility within themselves. We just have to give them the chance to do that. And they also feel a sense of responsibility towards the society as a whole. They're starting to feel that. So it's a great time to start having those conversations as well. Another big thing that happens is hero worship. Children at this age, they tend to kind of get fascinated by certain individuals. It may not necessarily be a celebrity or a sports star. It could be an older sibling, or it could be an uncle or an aunt. They just sort of almost get obsessed with this person, and everything this person does is considered as a good thing to do. So again, given that this is their inclination, who are the heroes that we are showing to them? So these three things, like the moral development that's going on, the sense of responsibility that they have, and the sense of hero worship, can be a very powerful combination to have all kinds of discussions with these children. So all in all, basically, your child right now has a constant sense of wonder at the universe, and they have a thirst to know more and more and more about the universe. They want to keep learning, and they have a very positive attitude towards learning. It comes naturally. It's not about sitting in a class and learning what the teacher has told them. The learning is literally everywhere. Your child is a person who feels moral and social responsibility. Your child is a person who needs a group, who needs a social life, who needs to laugh and play. And your child is a person who really needs to move, cannot sit in one place all day long. They need the movement, they need that physical exertion. Right? So I'll end it here. Basically, given that these are the needs of our children, or these are the characteristics of our children, how do we support our child to become a lifelong learner, to continue to have this sense of wonder at the world all the time? So I guess that's what this session is about. And as adults, like, it doesn't matter if you're a teacher or a parent. Basically, you're an adult in the child's life, and that basically means that you have to try to understand what the child needs. So I'll pass it on back to Shurobi to take on from here.
Thank you so much, Preeti. So yeah, just like Preeti said, all of us here are either teachers to elementary children or parents to elementary children. And whenever she was talking, whatever example she gave, I can see them at my home. And the thing with elementary children is you approach something in some way, and then all those characteristics that are happening with them, that is all that is real for them, and that is their approach to their learning. So with parents, we want to understand, whether we want to acknowledge that this is the child who is in front of me, and this is what I need to tune into. So we'll go over to Helen ma'am now, and once she speaks to us about a little more about parents and how to support our elementary children, we will open the house for questions. So Helen ma'am, we'd love to hear from you now.
Good morning, all of you. Nice to see all of you on a Sunday. Yeah, anyway, there's no Sunday, Monday. Every day is the same day. It looks like that. At least to me, it is like that. Thank you, Preeti and Moiza and Shurobi. I mean, for saying it all. Actually, whatever I'm going to say is a repetition of everything, because they didn't leave anything for me. Actually speaking, they've said it all. But I'm just going to repeat, and also it's going to be a repetition, a few points from whatever I said, all these other sessions, from all our other sessions. First, it's a crisis all over the world. Every single human being on this face of earth is facing this. So we are not special, and we are not isolated. So we are all together on this. Second, in spite of all that, hook or crook, somehow or the other, all we have to do is find happiness. As individuals, everything else falls next. You know, there'll be a priority sheet. We'll have a sheet and then we keep writing this. First is this understanding that the whole world together is going through this. You know, that will actually ease us out. If, you know, whenever you get to know that only I am in that spot, then it is very challenging and then it's suffocating. But when you get to know that everybody is there in this spot, it actually eases us out. Second, each one of you know what to do, how to do, when to do, because it's your home. Each home is different, each setup is different, and each lifestyle is different. Each individual is different with their thoughts. So I find a way and keep yourself and everybody around you happy. What you will do, I don't know. You may sing, you may dance, you may play, you may not cook that day or cook, or do whatever it takes to keep yourself happy. If you are happy, whoever's here is happy, automatically you'll be able to radiate that happiness around you. And whatever work is going to be assigned can be done only if you are happy. At least that's how it is with me. And I'm sure it is like that with everybody else. So find your ways. Why I'm saying find your ways to keep yourself happy is, there's no list. Nobody can give an exhaustive list of how to be happy. What my happiness need not be your happiness. I don't know what will keep you happy. So the principle that I'm going to give is, the first one is find happiness. And we can't give you a script or a recipe to find happiness. Each one of you put everything together, make an amalgam of whatever you have, ingredients, and make happiness. Cook happiness actually. How? I don't know. Find your ways. Second, you're not a teacher. Please don't become a teacher at home. When I say that, means now don't make a curriculum. Don't make a checklist of what your child should be writing, how much maths he should learn, how much geography he should learn, how much science he should learn. He's now 8 years. Let's check a textbook of 8-year-old from another school and match and see, is he in par with that? Please don't do that. If you do that, you'll fail miserably. Or, I mean, either ways. He'll either prove you wrong by saying, I know more than that, or he may not show only what he's doing. So please don't do that. And actually, we will be in a miserable state. Remember, I told you to be happy. If you have to be happy, if you do this, you can't be happy. So just leave that alone and try to be happy. Next, whatever Preeti said just now, of all the characteristic features, make a note of all those things. It will be nice if you write down and keep those. That will be your guiding principle for this age group children, the elementary children. That will be a guiding principle. Okay, my child, this phase is an intellectual, he's seeking for intellectual independence. And he's learning through asking questions because he's got a reasoning mind. Can I answer all his questions whenever he asks? Attempt that as a educator, not a teacher. A mother can be an educator. Anybody can be an educator. Somebody's asking a question of, what is the sun doing? Why is the sun so bright today? Now, why is it so hot now? Last week it was very hot. And if you knew about equinox, you could have if you're telling the child why it is so hot and why we are supposed to drink a lot of water, and if you're sharing the idea of equinox, you're educating your child. Because just now that's the question he's asking. So basically, he will ask innumerable questions, because that's the age that he's going through. So write down in your book that he wants to become intellectually independent. That's the phase now. So whether you like it or no, whether you want to know or no, he may either collect information by asking questions, or he may either collect information by observing, sitting and listening and observing, or he may read and collect information, or just quietly gather everything that's happening all around him. But whether you like it or no, whether visibly or no, he will be collecting information because that's the phase he's going through. This is what Montessori recognized and identified and said this is his characteristic feature. So ensure that his questions are answered. If you know the answer, please give it. If you don't know the answer, say, let's find out. And that will be a wonderful thing to do to initiate reading, initiating research. And from where will we find out? From where will I find out? I'll open a book and find out, or maybe Google and find out. So that's exactly what you should do with your child. So any question he asks, answer immediately, or connect him to somebody who knows that answer, or make a note of it and tell the teacher when the teacher is on call that this was his question. So maybe she will follow up from there, pick it up from there and give him the information and work around that. Or you Google and browse and along with your child. So show him the source from where you're getting the answer so that he can find his own answers when he is ready, when he wants to. That is if your child is reading and he's interested in reading. Or you can read, somebody else can read, some older people at home can read, other person can read. It need not be you alone. Any adult in the home can read for the child. I mean, I just want to touch upon few points, not all of them, a few characteristics which can connect you to the work that you can do with the child. And these are the guiding principles. We cannot give you an exhaustive list of what can be done at home. But if your child comes up with some situations like this, what to do is what I'm going to say. Another thing is, this age group children, they are very responsible. They want to take up responsibility. As Preeti said, give them a list of activities that you have at home, like filling bottles with water, or helping in the kitchen, or setting up beds, or dusting. I mean, I don't know what. You make a list and ask your child to make a choice of what he wants to do, what he wants to do. You know, offer water, or make tea, or bale roti, cut vegetables, sweep, mop, wash the toilet, wash vessels, wash clothes. I don't know what. Just make a list. You can verbally tell him, say, all of us have to do something. Now you make a choice of what you want to do. So he gets an option of making a choice. Having chosen, along with him, identify what are the tools, what all equipments he needs. So help him set up. See, just because he chose, we can't abandon him. Help the child with whatever tools he wants for the chosen work. And having given him that, you have to trust him that he's going to do that work. And also, you may, with his help, identify which part of the day. Supposing he's taken up mopping. When does he want to sweep and mop? Because mopping can't be done alone. It has to be done. It's accompanied with sweeping. So he has to do sweeping and mopping. I'm just giving you an example. If he has chosen sweeping and mopping, ask him when he wants to do that. Because sweeping and mopping can be done in the morning, can be done in the afternoon, in the evening, or even in the night. Before sleeping, what if he wants to do sweeping, mopping, and leave the house ready for tomorrow, for next day? I mean, that's okay. Certain things can be done any part of the day. And that's why I chose sweeping and mopping, to let you know it need not be the first thing in the morning or what. So let him decide the time when he wants to do that activity. And then trust him with that and leave him. And day in and day out, every single day, it's his responsibility. Supposing one particular day he doesn't do. Since he's responsible, you can question him as to why he didn't do. And maybe he'll give you an explanation of why he didn't do. Maybe he felt the house is very clean. It's not, doesn't require sweeping and mopping, and that's why he didn't sweep. I think it's a valid explanation. Because it's his responsibility, you must trust him and let him make the judgment of whether he should do or not do. And if he's not doing, and if he gives one lame excuse, then he can sit down and reason out. And this child is a reasoning child. You can reason out. You can sit down and explain and say why it is important to keep this place clean, why we are supposed to sweep and mop, or you can show the dust that is there. If you reason out, I'm sure you'll be able to understand. The child will be able to understand. So with patience, if the child has given valid explanation, go with this explanation. And if it is not, then sit down and reason out. I'm talking about one, and this is applicable to any work that is given to the child. And having given, trust the child, because this age group children are responsible with their task. But the only thing is, if you pitch in and do it, just because the child didn't do it, you have already set a tone that one of us can do. You can do, or I can do. And so the child will go by that. So let the child take ownership of that task taken. Next thing is, the moral responsibility will be in its highest. I've heard so many children saying, talking about just now what's happening, and whatever information, whatever talking, be contextual. Just now, whatever is happening, because we are also passionate about it, we are anxious about it, we've collected enough information about it, so share. And the responsibility also comes along with this moral wanting to know right and wrong, and wanting to follow right and wrong, and wanting to stand by it. And if somebody is doing something wrong, they will come and stop them from doing wrong. So that's at its peak. And if you reason out things and tell why we are supposed to do whatever we are doing, this online classes, why we are doing this, why we can't go to school, and why it is important that they sit down, listen, because the questions that are there, most of everything is around that. So if you reason out to them, they will definitely follow, because the age group is that. And yeah, and worrying about missing a year, worrying about missing academic learning, if the more you worry, you'll bring about more misery to yourself, and nothing is going to happen around. And and we pass it on to children. That's the saddest part, is we don't keep whatever we are thinking about what's happening. It doesn't stay with us. You don't have to verbalize it, but automatically it will be transferred to children. So I also spoke about positive communication. Stay positive, say all positive things, and positive nice things only will happen. Positive things only will happen, because I don't know whether you believe, but I strongly believe in the positive vibes. And this positive vibes and the positiveness and the positive aura, if it's there at home, it will surround the child and will take the child in a positive direction. And so it's important that you communicate. When I say communicate, it's not just verbal communication. In your action, in your thoughts, in your support to the child, everything should be positive. When I say support, positive is in case the child, the end result of the work is not perfect according to us. I don't know what is perfect. Again, it's relative. What is my perfect need not be your perfect, need not be somebody else's perfect. So what is your perfect? If you want the child to reach there, again, you will not be happy. Come back. Am I going to be happy by doing that? If it's not going to help you be happy, I think you should give up that. So if it's not going to help you be happy, checking the end result, stop checking the end result, because process is important. Is your child engaged? Are the child being completely engaged from the time they wake up till the time they go back to bed? Are they engaged? And is this engagement keeping them happy? And that's our duty, and that's our prime responsibility as adults around. And we, on the other side, we're all looking at how to keep the child, how to keep children happy is what we are looking at. Yeah, so I think I'll answer the other part as we go ahead with the questions. I'd stop here. Thank you, Shirobi.
I wanted to add something towards what Helen said. When as a school we're talking about, household chores like the sweeping, mopping, dusting, it can give a heart attack to all the parents. What are we driving here? As a school. But but believe us, it is not. We know the value of this kind of work and what it does to the child's intellect, to the child's social development, emotional development, moral development, all of those things. So don't undermine those activities. Now, when she was talking about a child choosing a responsibility and we giving the child the responsibility and trusting the child with that work, it's very, very important. So I'll give you an example. If you had to cook biryani, the first time, I'm sure, very few will get it right the first time. You will cook and the flaws, the deficiencies in the preparation, and the imperfections, and you try to rework on it the next time when you make. Similarly, when you are telling a child to, say for example, the child chooses dusting as the responsibility that he wants to do, and that the child has not done a good job, has missed one, but in a stroke hasn't cleared the dust completely. When that happens, take a deep breath and walk past it. Ignore it. Because the next day, the child is going to discover that dust that it remained. Allow children to self-correct themselves. Let them recognize their errors. Let them notice where they go wrong and give them an opportunity to correct. So trust them, take a deep breath and step back. If it's not if it's not life-threatening, ignore and walk past it. If it's life-threatening, please do intervene. Don't say, I have to ignore, let the child do something big and then I will, I had to allow the child this mistake. So you have to distinguish between those errors, where you need to intervene, it's urgent, it's needed, and where can you walk past it so the child discovers. Because if you leave that responsibility for the child is going to discover and is going to correct. So that's what I wanted to add. Over to you. I'm signing off from this idea and I'm going to be logged on my phone from now on in the next 1 minute. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Helen ma'am. Thank you, Moiza. So yeah, when she was speaking about taking a step back and observing what's happening with your child, this is exactly what we practice in our environments also. Before we approach the children, we wait and we try to figure, is it required that I approach this child now? And when you take that pause to observe what's happening with your child, you will be able to figure whether it is something that needs to be immediately responded to, or you can wait for the child to come back to it and they will eventually explore and find out what has to be done with that. So thank you so much to everybody who spoke so far. Preeti, Moiza, Helen ma'am, thank you so much. So like I said, this we are keen to make it as interactive as possible. And we have already started receiving questions and we'll get into the question and answer session. And Pragati also will be joining us here. So I'm just going to take it from the first session. There's something interesting I want to point out from the questions that are coming. If you look at all the questions that are coming and children have said something and parents want to clarify that, or children have asked questions, a lot of them are very, very similar to what our children in this age group would do. So it was interesting for me to read these questions. So the first question is, which says, I'm a parent of an autistic child. Please help me how to do online classes with my child. One thing I want to tell you is that just like how our trained adults are working and making their plans, our resource teachers are also working to create these individual programs to interact with children who require certain special support. So definitely something that does not work for your child, if coming online doesn't work for your child, that would not be one of the options that we would take up. Whatever is meaningful to you, each child and their condition and their situation, that is the only way to go forward. So we will keep this question in mind, and please do get in touch with the resource teacher who's already working with your child, and there will be a special plan created that will help resource teachers to work out the learning opportunities for children, even them without having to come online. So this is what I want to say. Pragati, is there anything that you would like to add to this? Your mic.
So the special educators are actually planning on meeting the parents online from starting from Monday. So very soon they're going to receive communication about that, and then probably they can have a proper planning done.
Thank you so much. And this goes for all children. There may be many children who don't want to engage on a particular thing or come online. There are other questions in the chat which are on similar lines, that my child is new to this online interface and how learning is going to happen. One thing is, the first week or so is going to be a settling time for teachers and for children to interact, to get used to each other before we can start off anything in terms of activities, or start presenting or doing our sessions which are inclined towards any of the academic work. So it may be possible that your child doesn't want to go online. In that situation, all you need to do is reach out to your child's teacher, and there will be a plan. There is always a plan. Like I said, we were never a school which will encourage online time, but because the situation is such, we are getting into this interface. But believe me, from all the characteristics that you've heard about our children, the whole day, all their questions, everything that is happening around them, they all have learning opportunities. And if we cannot make it through one way, there are hundreds of other ways to approach children's learning. All you need to do is get in touch with your child's teacher. If you're facing any particular concern, or the child is particularly either very eager or not eager, both ways, towards a certain aspect of engagement, in both conditions, you should reach out to your child's teacher. And a lot of how this schedule is going to function, how plans will happen, when classes will happen, that was another question in the chat. What time, how much, for how much duration the class will happen. These are certain functional aspects of the engagement which environment teachers will take up with their own group of parents, and you will get a notification about that session with parents as well. So a lot of these small aspects about when I should get ready, what is the time, all of those things will come to you, and a little more about how you will be able to reach out to teachers, how interaction will happen with children, how it will happen with parents. These are things which teachers themselves will start coming online and have sessions and group meetings with parents, and they will help you with such information. So the second question is, concern with elementary children is how they are going to work without materials during online classes. Just worksheets do not help. I would like to respond to that, but before that, if Pragati, Preeti, Helen, anybody would like to respond to it. The question is, with elementary children, how are they going to work without materials during online classes, and just worksheets will not help them? Pragati, would you like to share something about this?
Yeah, so basically our plan is in such a way that it will be more of the activities which the children can do very simple at home using the home resources. So we are not really focus more on material, Montessori material as such. So things that they can do very easily and which can definitely continue with the previous knowledge that they already have, and it's going to be on that. So,
right, thank you. Preeti, would you
Can
like
I say
to add
something here?
Yes.
Actually, a Montessori material gives them a concrete idea of the concept, a visual, because some of the aspects, concepts are abstract. So Montessori has put that abstractness into the material. So the teachers are trying to look at other resources easily available at home, which can convey that concept to the children. So they are working on it, and I made some list of activities. May not be everything, but at least some of it which they can find resources at home to convey the message, convey the concept, to give a clear understanding of the concept with 3-dimensional material. That's the basic idea of the material that's there in the environments. And after that idea is transferred, rest of the activities, all reading, writing, and collecting more information, and the follow-up activities, which I'm sure will happen as what Pragati said.
Preeti, would you like to add anything to this?
Yeah, so what we're planning is definitely not just worksheets. There are activities that can be done with, like Helen ma'am said, with materials that are available at home and that makes sense, that sort of convey a concept. And we may have them make very simple things at home with things that are available at home, like paper, rule, pencil, scissors. We may have them make some simple material to explore math or to explore a certain concept. And again, this is something we will make with them online live. So, it will be an interactive session for them as well.
Yes, thank you all. So can we continue online for the entire year? Those schools are open and they resume as earlier, as we are scared to come to school. So one thing we wanted to also say on behalf of the school is that there may be a situation where schools are opening up. But yesterday, Moiza has also clarified on the session with primary Montessori parents. We will open school only when it is absolutely safe and we are sure that it is going to be safe for children to come. Whether they will come in shifts or whether they will come alternate days or whatever it is, even that kind of a plan will be made only once we are sure that it will be safe for children to come in. And definitely now we are hoping that this is a temporary situation. So we may not definitely continue online for the entire year, or we may even have to. We do not know at this point in time. But safety will be the first priority. Even when we are engaging online with children, that safety, online safety also, taking care of their physical and mental well-being, that is also a part of our plan. So safety on whichever platform, and definitely before coming to school, that will be the first most important thing. And before that, we will not be opening the school. I think Moiza is also joining us in transit. Do you want to add to that, Moiza?
Yeah, so as you already stated, safety of children will be paramount, and our engagement will be modified from time to time based on the situation that emerges in the weeks to come. So we can't say for sure what we will do and how we will deal with things that come up. But as already stated, safety will be most important, and online engagement will be modified as we wade through these times.
Yes. Thank you, Moiza. So yeah, there's a comment that learning is happening constantly and nothing is being lost. I think this is in tangent with keep yourselves happy, understand who your children are, and that is the need at the moment. The next question is how to identify their needs and what are the needs of an elementary child. So I'm hoping this has been addressed through the information that Preeti has shared and Helen ma'am has shared. Pragati, this is the parent, Pragati. If you still have questions, maybe you can get in touch with us or post something specific that you would like us to answer. So the next question is, we being a Montessori format, how will online classes help serve the purpose of the concept? or is there an alternate which the management has thought of? So again, I think this also stands clarified through all the information that Pragati, Preeti and Helen has said, and what we've been continuously talking. Like Moiza has also just now informed, whatever work happens with children will keep getting modified, even through the online engagement platform. With different children, learning will move forward differently, and teachers will be in touch with the children one-on-one, and parents can be in touch with children, and whatever is real to children's learning at that moment, that is what we will look at, and that is what we will take forward. So that is how we plan to continue. For the worksheets kids are expecting us to do and explain, our concern is that we will not have much time to spend during the weekdays. I also assume teachers will not have time to spend with each and every child and explain the same way as if the child would have been in school. What's the action plan made for this? So first thing is, it's not going to be worksheet heavy. Already Pragati and Preeti have spoken to us about this. Whatever little forms of activity that are coming to children, if your child needs little more help with that particular concept, or with whatever is the difficulty, like I've already said, teachers will be interacting with children one-on-one. We are creating time during our day to engage with children. Of course, we can't engage with all children on the same day, but through the week we will be engaging with children. Maybe a weekend is when parents can get in touch with us. But yeah, there may be something that you might have to offer in that space, or clarifying doubts when your children are trying to attempt it. With very young children, you just need to be around and support that. Older children most definitely will probably not need your help with the activities that are coming across their way or that are being shared with teachers. Pragati, would you like to add anything to this?
No, you conveyed this.
Preeti?
No, I think you've conveyed it all.
So we'll go on to the next question. So this is, I appreciate the concept of free choice. Kids mostly avoid themes, skills in which they are weak. For example, writing. How can we handle such a situation with free choice? So I know Helen ma'am is already ready to answer this. Please go ahead, Helen ma'am.
So when it comes to writing, we're not saying put writing as part of the daily life activities. Daily life activities will have a separate list from which they can make a choice. And when it comes to writing, you'll have a separate list for writing. Do you want to write worksheet? You want to write journal? You want to write a story? You want to write the recipes of today's dishes? Or you want to write all your favorite, all your best friends' names and why they are your best friends? You know, so we should be smart. Make a list of everything around writing and let them make a choice from that. How does it matter if they're going to write about a sun or a moon or COVID or about you, about me, about birds or animals? All we want is him to write. What he wants to write, leave the decision. You know, when they make a choice, they feel that they have chosen to write and they'll take ownership. We told you that their responsibility, that they'll own up responsibility. So having chosen, they feel big. That somebody didn't ask them to write. They have made a choice. They have made a decision of writing, and they will stand by their decision, because right and wrong, you know, having chosen that they have to finish, that will be there with them. So they will write. So if they are not able to make a choice, then you can help. You know, supposing they are not able to write sentences, they can just write words like their favorite dishes, just names, or their friends, just names. Then slowly you can encourage them to write, I like, I love, I don't like, you know, just phrases. Then you can extend it to sentences, and then stories about that one word or one person or one situation or one dish. you know, I like rotis. What kind of rotis? Or it can go on. The list can go on, but it can start with just a word or a phrase or a sentence or a whole paragraph or a story around that one word, depending on which level your child is at. And if your child has chosen just to write the names, support, encouraged. It's as I told you, don't look at the end result. Don't see how correct it is. How much writing? How long? Did he write for 1 hour, 2 hours? That's not important. Has he written? That's important. Again, how much? 1 page, 2 pages? That's not important. Has he written? That's important. And having decided what to write, when to write, has he written during that, in that time? That is important. For all you know, some children may just want to draw. Having chosen the topic, they just may want to draw 1 whole page and write a word for that drawing. That's also enough. It's important. All that matters is this child engaged in this particular activity? And end of it, is this child happy? Engaged and happy. Time and again, I'm going to come around this only and keep reminding you about this. Happy, engaged. So give him an exhaustive list of writing to choose from. And writing will be not part of your daily activities. Daily activities list is another mandatory list. And yeah, same thing applies to reading. Now, let's read some books. Reading should be which book you want to read. Do you want to read this book or this book or this book or this book or this book? You know, give an option. So the book can be a 1-word book, lots of pictures to see, and there may be a sentence or a word or few sentences or only reading. Or sometimes there may be time when the child doesn't want to read, but he wants somebody else to read for him. So you should have that option also. Of you want somebody else to read. He doesn't want to read anything at all. So should I read? Or you want grandfather to read, grandmother to read, or your older sibling to read, or your teacher to read. A teacher reading also can be one of the option, and please let the teacher know about it.
Yes.
And the teacher will be more than happy to read for the child if the child is willing to listen.
Yes, thank you, Helen ma'am. I just want to add to this, if your child is facing any particular difficulty with regards to reading, or there is a difficulty in skill with regards to writing, that is something again you should bring to the teacher's attention. So they will be able to help you as a parent, help the child to get over or you know, work around that difficulty. And maybe that is what is the block in writing. So this is something that, you know, being in touch with the teacher will be able to make this online engagement more meaningful for children, and it will help parents to support the children better. So the next question is, this concern was for my child who is in grade 5. He asked me about the frequency of these online sessions, and he was saying that if gadgets emit radiation, why should we sit in front of the gadgets for online classes many number of times? He is fine if it's less number of times. He is very concerned, and when the worksheets comes, he fools around, and as a parent, your anxiety is that learning in this sort of disengaged approach may not do justice to their academics. So would anybody like to respond to that first? Pragati? Helen ma'am, do you want to respond to that?
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Okay, so the question is that this is a grade 5 child. First of all, that a grade 5 child is asking you the question about how many online sessions. This is, you know, even other children will be asking the same kind of questions.
Oh, okay, that part of the question I heard.
Yeah.
Did you not listen to Moisa, what she said? All of us are just sick and tired of this online sessions. And from that, the big list of sessions that we have, we are picking and choosing what is mandatory, what is important, what is, need of the hour just now. So the school will definitely not overload them with too many. That everybody, all of us are aware of that exposure. So it will be minimal. That's the least that is required, necessary and sufficient. That's another philosophy. The principle that we will follow is necessary and sufficient. We will not overload the child with more. What is required and necessary is what we will expose the child to. So that you should trust us with that, and we will make sure that minimal exposure the child will have. So that will be the least.
Yeah, and there is a learning potential in the question that the child is asking. Why online sessions? What's happening with the radiation? What is the context? There is a lot if you look at these questions that children are asking you, or they might not come as questions, they might come as excuses. Okay. But what are they talking about? What is it that is interesting to them? If you look at those statements that they are making, there itself there is a lot of scope to offer information there, tune into their intellectual development that is so high at this point in time. And there is one thing that parents should know about elementary age children. Their questions may come like this in forms of excuses, but we have to understand what is the child right now talking about, focusing about. And the moral development may also sometimes come in a form of a rudeness. Why should I do this? Why is this important? But please understand that they are all approaching it from the why, that question, why, how, when, what, that is the foundation of all intellectual exploration for elementary children. And about your anxiety of being disengaged, we are hoping that as teachers will start engaging with children online and offline or through the phone, we are hoping that some of these challenges will be eased out for parents and for children. So we'll have to wait for how that goes, and definitely stay in touch with your teacher if there is something more, or there is more support that you would like in this area. Moiza, do you want to add to any of this?
Nothing. I think we're covering everything. Continuing with what Helen was talking about, the work that children have to do about reading, writing, and all those challenges. I think the greatest discouragement or the barrier that we create is when our relationship with the errors is not very healthy, and that discourages children a lot. So I think accepting, having better tolerance for errors in writing when writing as a skill is being developed would be encouraging for children. So that's something that you could look at. Because I'm in a noisy place, I'm going to mute and you can continue.
Yeah. Thanks, Moiza.
And also it's a nice initiation, what is radiation? Let's look up the meaning of radiation in the dictionary. So that way you'll be introducing dictionary, use of dictionary, finding meanings. And then we don't know how much is allowed, how much radiation is okay, how much is not okay. Just now I said necessary and sufficient, but I also don't know if 1 hour Zoom call is enough, is okay, and is that radiation okay? I think that's a nice way to research, nice way to find out. If you can do the research and take printouts and give, and the child can read and try to see if what is radiation, how much is okay, how much is not okay, all that we can research, and that can be a nice sharing from this child to everybody else, nice information to pass on and make note of. And these children don't need lessons, don't need lot of teachings, not lot of, they don't need teaching only, they don't need lessons, they need spark. We all should be looking out for opportunities to ignite interest. And this child is already on that takeoff mode of wanting to, that urge is there. Like Shurobi said just now, it may not come as a question. It may come as a concern. it may come as a worry, this wanting to know, is this okay? Is that okay? Is also a question. It's leading question. So we can make use of this opportunity and
Thank you. So the next question is, you told about all other activities that is okay, but what about the study part? Can we leave them there only? So see, we are not, the whole point of having this session is for us as parents to understand when a child is showing us something or doing something like writing a word or asking a question, are we responding to it positively, understanding that this is learning? That is the first thing. What are you accepting as learning, and what are you negating that something is not learning? Something about what the child is doing does not come under the list of learning for you. And these activities of working with the hand, doing these care of environment activities, care of self activities, these are all important because again we connected to the sense of responsibility that children are that this plane of children are going through. So this is only one of the ways that we are going to approach that aspect of the child's development. Definitely we are not saying that we should leave out the study part, but how you will approach the study part is the most important question over here. Is only writing study for you, or only reading is study for you, or only doing math in a certain way, only addition or only multiplication in this 1 digit or 2 digit, is that the only list, are those the only activities which you consider as learning? And definitely the online engagement that teachers are planning, a lot of a little bit of reading, writing, math, and all of these things will be a part of the study part that we talk about. This is going to be a part of your child's life, but the rest of the time that the child is at home also offers enough potential for reading, writing, learning. So this is what we have to tune into. And Preeti, is there something that you would like to add to this, or Pragati? I will move on to the next question. Is it fine to always Google in front of the child in case I do not know an answer for a particular question? So I am sure that in most households, in most homes, most children now know that Google is there to answer questions. The best thing would be first to maybe go to a book or find out from another adult. There are so many people around us. The child can always get onto a phone, call somebody and find out. If you know of a resource person who can tell more about something to your child, that would be the ideal thing to go with. But also remember that answering children's questions at that moment would probably create more potential for learning. So if you have none of the other resources available, I don't see it as a very wrong thing at the present, in the present scenario, to find out and answer your child's question. Helen ma'am, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, that's perfectly right what Shurobi said. First is you answer as much as you know. Second is connect the child to the other adults at home or somebody else who you know that they have more information about it. Ideally, homes with children of this age group should be having lots of books. Ideal situation is lots of resources in terms of books should be there. If you have this, and that should be the last resort. For some reason, sad situation if there are no books, and if you have exhausted human resources, then the last option should be Google. And even before you expose the child to it, it'll be nice if you can research and take a printout and give. Or if there's no opportunity to, if there's no facility or resources to take a printout, you write and collect read and collect. Most important, depending on the age group, they may not need the whole article. They may need just few points. So collect that yourself and give. And if the questions are more, and if your availability is less, then maybe that I'm saying maybe.
Yeah, that's where the teacher comes in. Please, wherever a child is showing great interest in some concept or exploring, please connect to the teacher. They are there. They would be very, very happy if parents are able to give these kind of inputs, because then what we are doing with children, whatever our interaction is happening with them, will completely become meaningful for children.
So in that case, I don't think the children should be connected to Google.
Yeah.
I don't think, yeah. So the next option should be the teacher. Connect the teacher and give them that. You'll actually give a leading, what to say,
Leading
they will work around that step.
So suggest us to prepare materials at home. Like Preeti has already mentioned, there will be some sessions in which probably teachers and children will be exploring some kind of material making, and they will be all around some concept that they are trying to explore together. So please wait for the teachers to get in touch with you about all of these things, and or it may happen through the session once the sessions begin.
I wanted to add something here. What we're talking about, parents should not misunderstand that we are not working on any academic input. What we're trying to say is whatever academic work teachers send is going to engage them for a limited period. But the rest of the day is still there available for the child. And how do we make the most of it? So academic work is being obviously planned. There will be math, there will be reading and writing and exercises and worksheets that will be coming along. But that is not going to occupy the whole day for the child. We are trying to talk about how you meaningfully engage the child throughout the day. That is the effort here. So don't be under that impression that there is no academic work that will be carried on, and we will, we are trying to draw your attention to attention of parents to activities that has a great potential for learning, and those activities they would have carried out had they been at school, and how and how it is meaningful for children, and how they become contributing members of the family, which is important for them. And academic work anyway is being planned. So I think those things will be becoming clear as teachers start connecting in groups with parents. The academic work will be spoken about by the teachers. We are not taking this time to talk about that because that is based on each learning group or a learner. So that will come a little later. In a couple of days, you'll get to hear about that. Right now, we're talking about what you need to do as a family, what the child needs at home, and how we can make it more meaningful, more happier, and more engaging, and which can be of support to parents. Because how do you engage children throughout when you are going to work, when grandparents have to take care of children, when there are caretakers who are taking care of children? How do you make that time meaningful and engaging for children? That is the effort of all this, this conversation. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much, Moiza, for that clarification. So there's a parent who says that we have made a checkerboard at home. Checkerboard happens to be one of the materials that children use in the environment, and they would like to share it with the teachers. It would be nice for you to connect with your child's teacher, and this is your offering to help teachers, and I thank you on behalf of all the teachers. Thank you to parents who have offered help to us in various situations. You could definitely connect with your child's teacher and see what more can be done about that. So the next question is, I feel whether the parent is confused about their child's education, and the question is, I feel whether I'm forcing her to learn because concepts and method of teaching in Montessori way is different. Please help me in that. And she does not want to write and learn. She just wants to play all the time. So a lot of the time we are undermining the play that children are doing. If you just look at what they are doing while they are playing, you will get a lot of feedback about what the children's interests are. Like we said, we don't really have to have this feeling of missing out or pressurize our children too much about learning a particular concept. If the teachers at school are already reaching out to children at various levels and will be there to work with them and help them, to work on these various academic skills. And in case you have a particular difficulty, that is when you should reach out to your child's teacher, and maybe from there you can take it forward more meaningfully for your child. Definitely there is no need to pressure children about learning a particular concept. There are many ways in which a lot of the concepts will integrate with as children are exploring something. A very, very simple example is something that my child was exploring something about bears and honey and fish and all of those things. And from whatever they were exploring, which was actually a story and a kind of a story reading, and then questions came from there, and then it went on to what are the various types of honey, which is already going into science. From there it went on to how do bees make honey, and from there it went on to geometry, where the structure of the beehive is all hexagons. So if you actually start exploring certain things with your children, learning is always integrated. You will not be able to leave out science or math or geometry or reading or writing from any question that children will express as their interest, or anything that is that they want to learn about. You will see that as you are catering to one point of interest, it will automatically take you to all other subject areas of knowledge. And this is typically what happens in the school. And so having your child engage with their interest, teachers will be there to help you out, to have these conversations with children and to take them forward. And the only thing is, again, going back to keep yourselves happy, understand the children's characteristics, and approach the learning from there. It will help you to stay happy, not pressurize your child, and learning will be much more fruitful for all children. So the next question is, I'm just reading out, it's a comment and a question. So hello everyone, thanks to all teachers for at Pebble Creek for putting so much effort and thought into online learning process. I'm in agreement with what you're saying. As a teacher myself, I see this is a temporary crisis which we will tide over, and nothing can replace a physical classroom or a Montessori environment. Okay, so there is no question there. I think it's only a comment. Would it be preferable to allot study time on routine basis, or any time, any duration? Would it be preferable to allot study time on a routine basis? This is something I think Helen ma'am and Pragati or Preeti can add more to this. We have to work with elementary children about their day and their routine. Just like she said, this is an activity that is there to do. What is the time you will do it at? A lot of the times, if you help children to create their own timetable, and you will notice whatever time they are saying, even though it seems unreasonable to us, for them that is the perfect time to do that particular activity. So working with your own child to create such a routine and helping children to own that routine will be more helpful than for us to fix a time for them, that this is the time you should do something from the adult's point of view. So Pragati, would you like to add anything to that? The question is, would it be preferable to allot a study time on routine basis? I'm not sure if she's able to hear us. Helen ma'am, would you like to add anything to us, to this?
Yeah, I'm adding to what Shurobi said. One thing I would like to say is, when the whole family is busy doing something around breakfast time or lunch time, that's not the time to ask the child to do his worksheet or learn maths or even go read a storybook. When whatever the family is doing, he will want to be part of that work. Especially when the mother and the sister and somebody else, all of you together are making rasgulla. I'm just giving an example. If you are all involved there and they say, now you go sit down, take your book and sit down and write there. That's not going to work. He should be part of the activity that you are doing. So that's not the time for him to. So if you allot a time, if that time clashes with the time, something interesting happening, it's not going to work that way. After all the work with the whole family is done, and then if you have identified a time when everybody is going to retire and sit down and do their own work, that will be the most ideal time. And when that time is, I don't know. Again, as Shurobi said, can depend on your own home routine. And then if you identify a time where the whole family is going to be around doing their own bit, their own work, either reading or writing or stitching or knitting or connecting, doing office work or connecting with families or doing some kind of work, because that's when he would also want to do. And another thing is when the school is also going to engage them at a particular time. And if he's done that bit, I think that's also enough. 45 minutes to 1 hour, and I'm sure they will leave them with some work that they will have to do, and they will decide when they want to do that. They will make a decision of when they want to complete that work, and I think we should respect their decision because they are responsible and they'll take up, as Shurobi said just now. I think that's all I have.
Thank you, Alima. I just want to also add that we are not planning any long sessions online with children. It's not going to be instructional, and we are not going to overwhelm children with the online time. Teachers are carefully planning to ensure that these are all bite-sized, very tiny sessions with children, so that they can keep coming back to it every day in some form or the other, and that is only as much as we are expecting them to do in a day or complete. More about this, teachers will be sharing with all parents when they do their environment specific sessions. So the next question is, my kid is missing her friends and wants to talk to her friends. Can we plan for this? Of course, teachers are taking this into consideration, and they are missing the children as much as children are missing teachers and children are missing their friends. So there are plans to start with circle time, and where it's only socialization and interaction. And that is something that we've already taken as part of our plan for the day. So yes, they will be able to interact with their friends soon, hopefully, online. So the next question is, Telugu is a part of my child's curriculum. However, I do not know the language. How will that be handled in terms of support to be provided? I would request the parent, Sumit, yes, please get in touch with your child's teacher. And there are various ways in which we can approach a second language, even if you are not able to personally support. And definitely the live sessions which teachers will take are also going to slowly build. It may not be possible to do it with the similar amount of efficiency like we do it in class. But yeah, there are many resources to begin with. Listen to the language first of all. To start working on a language, you need to listen to it, and that itself will start the path towards Telugu as a language. And you will hear more about this from the teacher once you and the teacher and the child start working together. Pragati, would you like to add anything to this? Pragati, are you able to hear us? Okay. So we'll come back to Pragati if she has something to share. But these are, when Moiza was talking about, how every family has a situation which is special only to that family. Of course, we understand that every home has a different way of functioning. The situation at every home is different. The challenges that you face as parents will be different, and the concerns around children's development will be different. So the best way to take care of this and to personalize this journey for ourselves, for your child, and for you as parents is to stay in touch with the teacher and help them understand your situation, and teachers will respond to that particular aspect, that need that you have or that your child has. When will the online session start? Will they be every day or once a week? I think Preeti and Pragati, I would request one of you to please address this. Preeti?
Sure. So right now we're planning to start next week on June 15th, which is a Monday. And before that, we will be having another session with the parents, but environment specific. So you can see the teachers that will be with your children and you can ask your specific questions. And yes, there will be an online engagement every day, but like Shurobi said, it will be bite-sized engagement with follow-up work that will be given to the child. Also, we're planning on doing reading sessions in the afternoons so that we can keep our language development going. And these reading sessions will be in English as well as Telugu and Hindi. So I won't say more for now. We will have those orientation sessions sometime in the coming week, and we'll give you specific details on what the schedule will look like.
Right, thank you so much, Preeti. We'll move to the next question. My child is 7 years old and she's engaged in pretend play. Is this pretend play okay and normal for children? So remember the age group, and imagination is soaring, and this is something which is very normal. It in fact at this age, these are things which will happen with children. And Helen ma'am, I think you can respond a little more to that.
Yeah, this is normal, and if it continues for too long, is you have to worry. Just now, if it is there for some time and anything within the limit is okay. If everything from morning to night continuously, if this is happening, it's something to worry about. If it's happening with one particular incident or one particular situation or some story, and that's normal, because that's also important for imagination to be created and exercised and developed further. It's normal.
And also remember that children don't have their friends around them. If their friends were around, the whole play would have looked very different. And as long as it's not interfering with the rest of her her time and her well-being and her learning, it's absolutely fine. And these are the ways they are able to sustain themselves, if I may say. So it's fine to go, to allow your child this much space. So yeah, I'm seeing that we have reached the end of our questions. And yeah, Moiza has thanked everybody and she's having to leave the meeting right now. So I see that it's also around 12 o'clock, and we hope that with all the questions that we've tried to explore and answer and address together, some of the understanding of how we are going to take learning forward with children has been clarified to you. And also you have found some meaning in and understanding of as to how to support your children and their development at home. Like Helen ma'am has said, if you have jotted down those simple things about this age group children and the characteristics and what is very naturally coming to them at this age, that will really help you to tune into your child and to support whatever is happening to them. What is happening now is the real context, and that is what we have to work on. There is a question. Help parents to give more recipes in the next session. I don't know what recipes we are talking about, but if you could clarify that for us, that would help us to address your question. But like we said, no amount of list of activities or guidelines is going to completely, we cannot offer an exhaustive book of guidelines about, because each of our children are unique, their interests are unique, what's happening in our home is unique, what's happening with parents is unique. And that is what we have to look at. And I just want to assure from the school side that we have been spending all our meeting time with the teaching team collectively. We have been spending all our time with only these things. How can we make it more meaningful for our children? How we can reach out to children individually and in a group? How we can support parents? How we can support parents who are working from home, who do not have time? All of these things are priorities in our meeting when we are planning things for our children and planning our online engagement sessions. So if you do have more questions, please address them in the environment sessions that you will have with teachers. These announcements should come to you in a day or two, and they will all happen in the coming week. And Pragati, would you like to add anything to this? I hope you're able to hear me. I think there is some technical difficulty at her end, but yeah, teachers are all ears for parents' perspective, for parents' challenges, for the time that you have, and we are hoping that we will be able to cater very meaningfully to all groups of children, and to every child we will be able to connect, and with every parent to make learning meaningful. I think that's all that we have time for today. Yeah, stay in touch with your teachers, and that is the best way to take anything forward in a progressive and meaningful manner. So that's it from my end. Helen ma'am, any final thoughts you'd like to share?
Thank you for being there, and all the best for all of us, because this is the new normal.
Yeah.
I mean, the earlier we accept this new normal, the faster and happier we will be able to move forward together. All the best to all of us. And I'm excited. Actually, I want to, see the happiness in the parents when the teachers actually start engaging with children. All these, I'm wishing and praying that all these questions and doubts and everything just vanishes in thin air, and let's be positive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a
Thank you
good day.
so much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Pragati, Preeti, for being with us today. Thank you to all our parents who have taken the time on a Sunday to be here with us, and to all our teachers who are listening in support. Let's stay happy, let's stay connected, and our academic and teaching team will get in touch with you shortly. Thank you so much for being here. We'll see you soon. Have a lovely Sunday.
Thank you.